morning. My name is Garth Larson. I am the co-founder and CEO at First Educational Resources. And on behalf of our entire team at First Educational Resources, thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly important topic that Percy Brown Jr. is going to discuss: how schools can look at and have conversations in their space around going phone free. And I think as any of you read different articles going on in the field of education right now, maybe you're experiencing this in your school, maybe you're experiencing it as a parent like I am right now. The conversations around phones in schools are at the forefront of almost everything that we see. So we thought it'd be a great idea to partner with Percy Brown, who has worked with schools on this process. I know given us a lot to think about what this looks like, and really just share some information, thoughts, and a conversation around how schools can begin to have this important conversation. So the one thing I want you to know, if anything that you hear from Percy today resonates, or even if you're looking for some additional support of what that can look like in your own school or district, please know that we are here and available. We will send a follow-up email with the actual link to the recording from this, because this is being recorded for your benefit and for others in the future that can use this to learn and grow from Percy. So without further ado, it's my honor to introduce you and turn it over to Percy Brown Jr.
Thank you so much for that, Garth. Good morning, everybody. My name is Percy Brown. I am situated in Dane County, Wisconsin, with my good friend John Tanner that I see on the screen. He's not too far away from where I'm from, and it's really good to be in the space with you this morning. I am a district level administrator. My focus has been diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm currently in the DeForest Area School District, serving in that role right now. But I also have my own consulting business, North Star Consulting Services Incorporated, and I've been doing that for 7 years. Garth and I have partnered quite a bit in the work, and it's been an extremely amazing time being in community with him. But in my work as a consultant, but also as an educator, particularly this last school year, I was in over 26 schools across 6 school districts in Wisconsin and in the state of California. And I'll share a little bit more about that. And it was really that experience that got me to this place to be able to try to move this conversation as far as I could. And this conversation is important for us as educators, but I think it also lends itself to a broader conversation in terms of what can we do as schools to also engage and educate our parents in the broader community on the issue of technology, but in particular when it comes down to our young people and their use of social media and online gaming. And so I'll go ahead and get going. And honestly, as I was preparing for this webinar, I reached out to Garth, and really the full process, I'll be honest, I'm not able to offer it to you, but I had to reach out to a company that really makes what I think is the right approach for schools foolproof, and that's Yonder. And so they are in the space, and I've had several meetings with them. They've shared their slide deck with me, and I've incorporated some of my slides to really bring a meaningful message to you all that may lend to some great Q&A at the end of our conversation. So without further ado, I will go ahead and share my screen and get rolling. All right, so I think most of us already know that we are seriously in the midst of a mental health crisis with our young people, and the reason for that is really technology. I remember it was March 13th, 2020, when the school district that I was working in at the time decided to close schools, and we went virtual for almost 2 years. And while virtual education met the need at the time, there were a lot of unintended consequences that we did not consider in the midst of what we were dealing with at that time, right? And research always lags the things that we're in the midst of, right? And fortunately, there is research coming out really talking about our young people, the ways in which they've been hooked into technology, the amount of time they're hooked into technology, but even the ways in which social media and online gaming is really contributing to their overall mental health, but then really looking at how it is impacting their ability to receive a high quality education. Even our Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, put out information saying that social media is an issue. It's an up and coming crisis or a current crisis for our young people in regard to mental health. And I was already down the rabbit hole prior to our Surgeon General really bringing out this information about the ways in which social media and online gaming is impacting our young people. But even in my own research, there's Pew Research that has come out from the Pew Research that says that preteens are using social media and online gaming leisurely for approximately 40 hours a week. So we have preteens on average that are spending as much time leisurely on social media and online gaming as most of us in our full-time jobs. And for our teenagers, it's up an additional 10 hours from 40. And so teenagers leisurely on social media and online gaming are spending almost 50 hours a week. I was just meeting with one of my students last Wednesday. She was coming out of her advisory class, and that was my first time seeing her, since the end of the school year. And I had had several conversations with her and her friends about the amount of time that they were spending on social media. And so the first thing, I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? How was your summer?" And then I immediately asked her if she had her phone. She pulled it out, and I said, "Go ahead and go into the screen time," because I always do that with kids. And I said, "What's your average time per day?" And she put her head down and she was like, "Mr. Brown, it's 8 hours." And so 8 hours per day, right? And this is a student that is doing relatively well in the classroom. But when we think about 40 hours a week and 50 hours a week for our preteens and our teenagers, that is somewhat disturbing. And even when we think about the achievement gap, right? All of us are trying to work on that. There's even data and research that is showing that students that are in poverty or students of color are disproportionately hooked into social media and online gaming more so than the average teenager. And we know that, those communities or those subgroups of students have barriers and lack of access to extracurricular opportunities that would keep them, away from the device as much. And so that's just some additional data for you to consider. So going back to what I was talking about before last year, right? I was in over 26 schools across 5 or 6 school districts in the state of Wisconsin and California. And the reason why they were bringing me in was to deal with the issue of hate speech in their schools. And so across all 26 schools, I started with gathering data, and I wanted to show you kind of my root cause analysis because I was brought in to deal with hate speech. And part of that process is really me meeting with students at the ground level in order for me to really get a better understanding of what's going on in the day to day, right? Because every community is different. It has its own culture. It has its own issues, even though there are some universal issues that are specific across all schools. But at that ground level, meeting with students from grades, fourth grade, all the way up to seniors, a lot of stuff that I kept hearing was social media, online gaming as part of the reasons why they were being exposed to hate speech. And so as I was gathering that data, I started to do some more homework. And that's when I really started looking at some of the research and some of the impact that social media and online gaming was having with our young people. And then Jonathan Haidt came out with The Anxious Generation, which is an amazing book. He lays it out for schools, school leaders in terms of what's at play and what we really need to consider. And so as I was going through that process, right, I was coming in to deal with hate speech, but when I really started looking at the causal factors, it really started coming down to the amount of time that our young people were spending on social media and online gaming. And when I started looking at the research behind those platforms, social media apps are hotbeds for misinformation and disinformation. And when you look at online gaming, especially when kids are hooked up and mic'd up, the type of language that's being used, racial slurs, misogynistic language, the level of bullying that goes on those platforms is unbelievable. But even when you look at social media and online gaming, social media has more of a negative impact on females more so than boys because it's all about image consciousness that are impacting the girls on spaces on social media apps. But as far as online gaming, it's impacting boys more because boys are hooked into the gaming world. a little bit more than girls, but then the amount of time that they're spending on those devices is really rewiring their brains, right? And so hate speech, we can say it's the media, we can say it's a learned behavior at home, but after, digging a bit deeper, I really can say, hate speech is a symptom of kids' excessive use of social media apps and online gaming. And so halfway through that work, I really started to shift my school-wide assemblies when I would come in and provide education on hate speech. It really shifted not all the way from hate speech, but really started bringing in the conversation and making our young people aware of the ways in which social media and online gaming is having a negative effect on their mental health. And so as I came into the back end of really looking at recommendations and solutions, part of that was hate speech policy. But again, I think the bigger issue is really looking at the ways in which social media, online gaming is happening in our schools. Most of you all probably know about Roblox. Our kids have backdoor channels in terms of how to access those games on their laptops as well as their phones. But one thing that we can do, and a lot of us have cell phone, policies, we really have to consider what will it take to go all the way. And why should we consider going all the way? Here's some data that has come from Yonder. When you look at the time it takes for students to gain focus after being distracted by their cell phone, it's 20 minutes. PISA has given out some data on math scores. When distracted by phones, we see that math scores go down by 15 points. Social media use, this data is coming from the Surgeon General. 3 hours is the average, even though there is other research that's saying that it's even higher than 3 hours per day. And then 68% of students, based on the National Institutes of Health study, says that, technology or electronic devices are distracting to them. So those are just a few data points right there, but I wanted to bring in additional data that comes from John Haight's book, The Anxious Generation. I want to point you to attention fragmentation, which is huge when it comes down to kids being able to focus and engage in rigorous learning. And an example of attention fragmentation is the fact that social media apps, young people, they are receiving on average 192 notifications per day. I want you to think about that. And if you have your phone in your bag and you hear your phone buzz, even with the watch, that is taking that attention away from that student on being focused on learning. And that's just the time that the notification actually happens, right? How much time then lags in terms of their attention being on that phone and not on academics. Sleep deprivation is a real issue. When I've done school assemblies, I always engage kids and I ask them questions, with your online gaming, like how long are you on the gaming system? And there are kids that say that they wait for their parents to go to bed. They get up, they get on the game, and they're on the game until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then they're only getting like 2 hours of sleep. Even one of my colleagues, that's a principal at one of the schools here in DeForest, over the summer, he just woke up in the middle of the night at like 2 o'clock in the morning, went downstairs and saw his son playing video games. He was mic'd up. And so what he decided to do was turn off the internet every night from 10 at night to 6 in the morning, right? So even educators are having issues with their children, not just in school, but also at home. Social deprivation is a real thing, right? People that have, or schools that have cell phone policies, a lot of them don't go all the way. No phones in class, but you can have phones in the hallway and you can have phones during lunch, right? When we're looking at this particular issue around social deprivation, if we allow phones just to be in the light spaces of our buildings, whether it's during passing time or even during lunch, if you take the time to just look at in the cafeteria and look at what students are doing, you will probably see more students on their phone than you will actually see having face-to-face conversations. I was actually on a walk with my family a couple of weeks ago, and there were 5 girls outside on a picnic table. And they were hanging out. It was good to see them outside, but they were just literally sitting there, and every last one of them were on their phones. So they were on their phones, engaged into the technology, but not having conversations with each other, even though they were outside. And then the last one is really what gets the young people and even us as adults hooked, and it's called the hook model. And what is the hook model? This is what it looks like right here. And this is an example that comes from Instagram. And again, in doing my homework, there's a great documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's called The Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. It talks about the algorithms that are behind all of these social media apps that are really designed to learn everything about the user. And as they're gathering that data about you, they sell it to companies, which then push their products on you, right? And so the more that they have you hooked in to their apps, all they're doing is gathering all of this data about you. And now with you know, artificial intelligence kind of coming into the mix, it's only going to make those algorithms that much stronger. But when we talk about the hook model, right, let's just look at the top left. It's triggers, right? And you see the external triggers. FOMO means the fear of missing out, right? And so that external trigger is that notification. So let's say I'm a 10th grader and I post something on Instagram right before I get ready to go to school, right? I make that post, and then as soon as people start responding to it, whether it's a comment or a like, I'm going to get that notification, which then I move into the action. I'm going to open up my app. I'm going to check to see who liked whatever I post or to read whatever comment somebody may have made on my post. And more than likely, I will respond, right? And so now that moves into people are commenting, you're engaging in the conversation, you're getting more likes, you might get more friend requests, which is a real thing. And then from there, you know, your followers increase. And so this model really does a great job of hooking our young people in because it gets back to that FOMO. I hear kids say it all the time. If I don't have my phone, you know, if I'm not hooked into what's going on Instagram or TikTok, I really do feel like I'm missing out, right? And that's that addictive piece. And so when we're talking about addiction, we really have to take it seriously as educators, but we also have to take it seriously as educators to make sure that whatever approach we do moving forward when it comes down to our own cell phone policies in schools, we also have to make sure that we're educating our parents. Because I would honestly argue and agree and say that the hook model is also impacting adults. And so before I transition into sharing more or a few more slides in terms of the yonder approach, I want to leave you with this slide here with Jonathan Haidt and the Anxious Generation. He basically tells us, you know, the tech execs that are making these social media apps and platforms send their kids to schools that are completely device free. In the state of Wisconsin, we have Waldorf schools. I actually did a school-wide assembly on social media, blended with hate speech in Shorewood. And afterwards, I had several students that came to me that talked about their experience as Waldorf students because there are Waldorf schools here in Wisconsin. They were there from kindergarten through eighth grade. And they talked about the difference for them being in a tech-free environment versus being in a learning environment where technology and access to technology was kind of loosey-goosey. And they had their pros and cons, but at the end of the day, those handful of students did say that a device-free environment was better for them in terms of their academic engagement, as well as their overall mental health and its well-being. So in terms of what cell phone policies look like globally and across the United States of America, here's some statistical information for you. You see Arkansas at the top of the slide. I know Arkansas has actually launched a statewide initiative. Their governor, Huckabee Sanders, um, put together an executive order coming from the governor's office where she's encouraging all school districts to go completely phone free, which is also backed by funding so that they can go all the way and actually have a bag that kids can put their devices in and actually have them locked for the entire day. And then right here, 75% of public schools do have some type of restriction on cell phone use during school hours. But we know that a lot of schools, while they have those policies, when it comes down to full implementation and consensus from staff, to implement that, it is nearly impossible. And I think Rebecca Rothery sums it up best. In my work as an educator, the conversations that I've had with teachers, whether it's in my own district or in the other schools that I've worked in across the country, to add an additional thing onto teachers' plate, especially when it comes down to dealing with an issue where we know addiction is real with our young people, is really an unfair ask of our teachers, right? It's already enough for them to manage the classroom while delivering high quality instruction. And so we really want to go to a phone-free or a phone-free policy that is really, restricting the use of young people's access to their phones in the buildings. We cannot put that pressure on teachers, and that's me coming from a perspective of a district level administrator. And while I don't work for Yonder, I do believe that policy is the first thing that needs to be established, a sound and strong policy. The second piece, it has to be layered with education. And I don't think that we can do that enough. And that is what we do. And so I feel that there should be a commitment and an obligation to educate your staff, to educate your students, to educate the broader community on why schools need to move in the direction that they're moving in when it comes down to a complete phone-free school. And so since 2014, Yonder has actually been supporting school districts across the world. And right now they have millions of students that have benefited from a phone-free education. They're currently partnering in 27 countries, and they are working with schools in all 50 states. And I'll just show this brief video that they've included in their presentation.
Educators around the world are seeing the damaging effects of phones on student engagement, social development, and mental health.
Cell phones have been linked to many of the district's recent problems.
Texting, tweeting,
Cases of anxiety and depression.
bullying, staging fights, and filming fights.
In an effort to crack down on cell phone usage, the district piloted these magnetic locking bags called Yonder.
It's an easy solution for a generation in the midst of a mental health crisis.
Yonder is the established leader in creating phone-free schools. For over 10 years, our product and program has allowed students to experience the focus, creativity, and relief that comes from a phone-free school day. As students enter school, they place their phone in their assigned Yonder pouch. They close and secure their pouch, keeping it with them throughout the day. When leaving school, students tap their pouch on an unlocking base to retrieve their phone. Yonder is used by millions of students every day across 26 countries. Our school partners report having more teaching time in the classroom, improved student safety and wellness, better student engagement, student behavior, and academic performance. Creating phone-free schools is a community initiative. Our comprehensive program provides support to our school partners from start to finish with step-by-step guidance, parent communication materials, policy development, and proven expertise to ensure everyone understands the difference a phone-free education can make.
It's amazing to see kids come to school and not have to worry about that phone going on or them being bullied by someone else on social media.
It was kind of annoying at first, but then I saw like the difference between like my old school and this school.
I see more people like interacting rather than being on their phone, like especially at lunchtime and break time. They are way more engaged. Everyone's happier.
It's night and day. I saw kids' faces again.
Published. All right, so Yonder is a partnership. They do have a product that's proven. The results are immediate. I can't really speak to that. I'm just really trusting the work that they've done and the research that they've put behind the work that they're actually doing. And again, I have met with several folks from Yonder quite a few times. And it seems as if they are genuine in terms of really trying to support schools with this effort right here. And I do think that whether it's Yonder or another company, right, I'm not sure who else is out there. When it comes down to what schools need to do moving forward, we do need a comprehensive approach that ultimately gets to a place where children or our young people just don't have access to their devices during a school day. But they do offer a program, with the equipment. There's training and support, as well as curriculum resources. This is kind of the up and down, right, where student behavior, social connection goes up, and anxiety and depression goes down, at least during that time block when we have our kids in schools. This data was already given in the video. Feel free to take a look at that really quickly. Behavior referrals do go down, bullying and harassment goes down as well. And I served as a dean of students in 2 different high schools over a period of 5 years. And I can honestly say that most of the behavioral referrals that I was really dealing with was coming from cyberbullying. But I do know, as I've worked with principals across schools, social media, the things that are being posted and how it's coming into our schools and impacting our school day is really taking a lot of time away from administrators. It's taking away time from teachers. And when you add up the time that administrators or deans are dealing with, behaviors coming from social media, or the times that teachers have to actually, stop instruction to deal with cell phones, weigh it out. Is it more time as far as money to deal with this, or will you save money if you go ahead and invest in a policy, an education program, and an approach where kids do not have access to their cell phones during the school day? Here are some testimonials from Yonder, from teachers that actually have the program implemented. All right, and here's an important slide as I get ready to wrap this up. So we're at the beginning of the school year. And so I know, designing a policy and implementing such a program like this is something that you really want to launch at the beginning of the school year. Some schools may already be ready to do this. I know New York City Public Schools, right? They talked about it over the summer. They made the decision over the summer, but they're looking at implementation in January. I think LA Unified School District, they launched theirs at the beginning of this school year. I know Yonder is currently working with school districts in Virginia and Arkansas to get their schools off of the ground. But if you're not there, like my district is not there right now. So we are in the planning phases. But as part of the planning, we are launching an education program this year. In addition to policy development, we already have school-wide assemblies scheduled at our high school, our middle school, and even our intermediate school. I'm sorry about that, intermediate school, which serves 4th grade through 6th grade. And so I will be doing school-wide assemblies from our 4th grade all the way through senior year in high school. That will be recorded, and then we will send that video out to parents, but then that will be followed up with listening sessions and opportunities for parents to be engaged in the learning process as well. And this is all preparation for us to be able to launch a complete program and find funding by the beginning of the 25-26 school year. I'm also working with Door County, which has 5 smaller school districts, and there may be 1 or 2 people from Door County that's in the space right now. But we had a really powerful meeting, and we're actually bringing in community partners. And so United Way was part of our planning meeting, and they are in the same place where we will work collaboratively to come up with a countywide cell phone policy, but then really looking to launch a full program in the 25-26 school year. And again, in Door County, it's really a matter of finding the funding for full implementation. But United Way did say that they would be willing to support that effort to help Door County schools kind of get all the way to the finish line with this. I'm even working it at the state level. I have a meeting coming up with one of our state assembly representatives to talk policy ideas. Also know that there is someone, a state senator in Wisconsin, that is working on a statewide policy. However, from what I've learned about his policy, it's not going far enough. He just wants phones banned during class time, but giving access to kids during passing time as well as lunchtime. But I can honestly tell you that is not the solution, right? And so whether you're all the way there or not, right? If you're all the way there, that's a different conversation, right? Where, you can connect with myself, Garth, and Yonder. But if you're not all the way there and you're really interested in planning, looking at policy development, and launching a strategic education campaign this year, feel free to follow up with Garth, and we can take it from there in terms of what we're talking about around a strategic approach to really move in the right direction to get where you want to be with a phone-free school system and policy. It does make the difference. I'm winding this down to really open it up for questions and answers. I do have people from Yonder in the space. I'm here to answer any questions. Garth is here to answer any questions. Here's contact information for Yonder. Here's contact information for me. Garth has all of your email addresses and has been emailing you. And so you have a lot of different ways to be able to hook into the conversation that we brought to you all today. And so that's the presentation. I'm here, Yonder's here, Garth is here. And so I'll open it up for any questions that you all may have at this time.